the person kept apologizing and saying, I know what I'm dealing with is not as bad as what other people, but you know what? It's what we're dealing with. The person said, stop apologizing or saying caveats of, we know this is not a big deal. It's a huge deal for us. This is the Loud Quiet Living the Empty Nest.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Loud Quiet, episode 57, which is going to be a little different chat today as, well, it's not the episode we thought we'd be making today.
No.
In fact, we didn't think we'd be making an episode today.
No, we thought we would be doing this episode from Orlando.
In fact, let's see, what time is it? We'd be driving, or maybe not quite,
Getting
but
ready
getting
to go to the
ready to
airport.
drive to the airport.
Yes.
An airport we will not see today.
No.
Why is that?
So this episode is going to be about disappointment. And I know we've touched on that before, but usually it's been involving things around our children or, I mean, we've had disappointments as adults too, but this one was, I think we're still in a little bit of just like shock, or not even shock, but just, we will get into, we have put so much mental and physical energy into what we were going to be attending in Orlando, and at what, 5:15 yesterday?
Yeah, it was around that time frame, right? So we discovered that we would not be going to Orlando.
Yes.
And as with many stories, when you talk about disappointment or that, we recognize that what we're about to talk about is not the same as the tragedy of losing a family member, or like this is career disappointment, this is preparation disappointment, and it's real, but we want to acknowledge that there can be things that are even.
Well, okay, and that's very interesting because actually a podcast I was listening to this week, the person kept apologizing and saying, I know what I'm dealing with is not as bad as what other people, but you know what? It's what we're dealing with. So, and the person said, stop apologizing
That's a great point.
or saying caveats of, we know this is not a big deal. It's a huge deal for us. I mean, this is disappointing.
Yeah, that's a
And
really
I
good
really
point.
resonated when that caller called in and said, I really wish that people would stop caveat and apologizing for what they think is a bad thing, but comparing it to other people's
Great
bad
point.
things. So,
Oh my
anyways.
gosh. No, let's stick on that for a second. We were not, clearly that wasn't planned.
No, but when you said that, I was like, no.
Cut it off. What's funny about that, or you saying that, I have said that to other people. I have said, don't apologize for that. You're feeling what you're feeling. It's okay to feel that. That's you. Heck, we've said it to our children. We've said it to our friends. I've said it to people I've never met in person, but have developed a networking connection through LinkedIn and other spaces. And I tell them, no, you don't get to apologize because you're experiencing what you're experiencing. And then lo and behold, here I am trying to insert a caveat.
That's just human nature, I think, because okay, I shouldn't be feeling this way over something like this, but when other people are, like you said, dealing with way bigger tragedies, but it's what we're dealing with right now. So,
So So what is that? Yeah, enough of what is that, like an 8-minute tease? It is. So as you can, those of you who are watching, if you aren't watching, Clancy and I are dressed very similarly today. I think the mic stand may be blocking my logo, but we are representing CX Passport Live, which is the new business extension of my podcast, the podcast that I've been doing for 3 years, CX Passport. It's a business podcast. It's about customer experience with a dash of travel.
and this is what we had teased probably 5-6 episodes ago, saying, we were thinking about going into business together.
That's right.
What's that going to be like? And so this is
that business.
This event that we were going to in Orlando was supposed to be the launch of
CX
Passport Live.
Well, we can do the Loud, Quiet, Living the Empty Nest together. We can't seem to talk.
Yeah. So that was. I'm sorry, I didn't know we were saying that together.
No, gosh.
So,
I was laughing at how we started to and then just fell apart,
but
which is an indicative. We started and then it fell apart.
so
It,
this is what I've been going up to your office. We have been, you know, we designed the logo. We had stuff that we were going to give to
and if you're
you were going to be doing 3 podcasts while we were at this event. This event was sponsored by someone that you had already had a relationship with.
This was this was a big B2B software company.
Yeah.
Their user conference. This is thousands of people. This was a big thing at the Gaylord at Orlando.
Yes. I mean,
And
we had coffee mugs made. I'm trying to hold it the right way so you can see it. We had our, you know, the business cards with the QR code because we launched a new website.
That's right.
We had,
Go ahead and zoom in on that for those of you that want to.
we had wine glasses made with the etching on it. We put a lot of mental energy, money. We had to buy new equipment.
That's
For,
this was really, I'm glad you pointed out it's been 5 or 6 weeks. As we built towards this, and I knew this was happening several months ago, but it really did start to kick in after we took Tegan back to school. The summer was all about get to that point, and then I knew my entire business mental energy was going to be there. And then you were brought into doing a whole bunch of mental energy into that as well.
Yes.
And the amount of YouTube videos that I have watched on how to check the peaking levels on an external monitor with the green lines and the ISO and the well, I said something else. F-stops, things I didn't know anything about, because when you're doing just a casual video or like remote, CX Passport's been on remote. I didn't need to do that. Well, this was going to be the first one, and I wanted it to look incredibly professional. I wanted to know exactly what I was doing. I wanted no mistakes, and the amount of work that and then the amount of work that we put into making sure there'd be no mistakes was significant.
Yeah. I mean, we spent almost 2 hours last Friday just going through the website that you had created, and I was like, nope, we need to redo that. Nope, let's redo this. So yes,
all very good inputs, by the way.
I recognized that our logo was a little bit off because there was a space that wasn't supposed to be there, and you didn't even notice. It drove me nuts when I saw it. So
we need to make sure and talk when we talk about what it's like working together, 6 months from now, when we've really kind of done, we've had our fights, we've had our successes, all that. That's a great point to bring back in. Is I didn't see it.
Yeah.
And even when you said something, I saw half of what you said, but I didn't see the main thing that you were talking about. So figuring out how to communicate those things.
Yeah. So, yesterday we spent all day pretty much, packing. I didn't get a picture of, you had all of the equipment laid out, the stuff that we were taking. Everything was pretty much, we were winding down. And then at 5,
I was just about to start putting into suitcases my stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you knew if you could tell from my face that something bad was going to happen.
No, because you came in kind of laughing. You were like,
oh, yeah, but it's probably more like a psychotic Joker laugh.
Uh-huh.
And I said, yeah, they just canceled the entire conference for a good reason.
Yes.
They handled it incredibly professionally. The people I'm working with, this company, are so professional. They are heartbroken that this is happening. So this is not a callous, oh, what a bunch of jerk kind of thing. No. There's a hurricane with Orlando at its dead center on the day that the conference was going to be.
And, last week when I was looking, I always look at the weather. I was like, oh, it's going to be rainy. And I kept getting the radar alerts on my phone. Blah, blah storm has been upgraded to. And I was thinking, oh, okay, well, that's probably why it's going to be rainy. Well, yeah.
And for any weather nerds that are out there, if you're not, just skip forward like about probably 60 seconds. This is a weird one. If you look at where it's sitting right now, it's kind of off of Cancun. and it's going that direction, straight across the Gulf to Florida. I don't recall any hurricane doing that direction because when you said, "Oh, there's storms," I went and looked at that
Yeah.
same time. I was like,
So,
"Oh, okay, nah, that's fine. There's
that's
just storms going."
Florida
Yeah,
storms.
well, no, and
But
the one that I saw, I was like, "Oh, well, it's hitting Mexico. It's going to go through." Nope,
yeah.
dead center.
I mean, it was funny when we started texting people that needed to know what was going on. The kids were both like, "It's still hurricane season." And
Yeah.
I'm like, I know it does. It seems late, but
And I think that's an element too of why we're seeing so much damage and tragedy in North Carolina. There probably was an element of, wait, it's still hurricane season to the degree that's going to come that far inland, and I think there is a lot of that surprise that this is still going on.
so they did. I do appreciate that they took that into consideration instead of us all getting there and then being stuck or being in some sort of situation that none of us want to find ourselves in. So,
And if
but
you're not associated with the corporate world, like these
oh,
events, when I say they're planned a year in advance, that's not an exaggeration. The one that I went to last week that I was just an attendee, they announced at that event, hey, so the next dates for this in Austin are going to be blah blah. These are prepared so far in advance, so the angst of canceling. We talk about our disappointment. This is a much wider
yeah.
disappointment.
Oh, for them,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel for the girls and event planners, and I've been in charge of events for school things, and when you have to cancel something, yes, it's very disappointing.
Yeah.
And so I feel badly for them.
Yeah.
And we had also reached out to a couple that used to live in Frisco that I was very close to, Lisa, and great, come in, yes,
We were gonna
Sunday
fly in,
we're gonna
have some
have
fun.
fun, yeah. And
It does make like I was sitting there going, okay, but I got to make sure that I don't have too many beverages and don't eat things with a lot of salt because I'm going to be on camera the next day. Don't want to be puffy and all that. Yeah, all the things that in a snap
yeah.
just don't matter anymore.
And
So we ate things that made me puffy last night.
so I was telling you that it is a little ironic that our life group this last week has been discussing 5 anchors of prayer, and our discussion on Tuesday was about unanswered prayers.
Yeah.
And our prayer request that evening was, hey, just hoping that this event goes well. This is kind of our first launch of all of this. And so
Let's talk about like that, like the feelings, because the logistics of this point, it sucks. We put so much work into it. All of that. But I want to take what you just said there and talk about kind of the feelings of this, because when it first happened, I was just, all right, and then later that evening talking to you, I said, I feel so disoriented because this was going to be such a pivotal moment in the launch of something. And it's something that I do feel very confidently that from a faith perspective, this is, all things have been kind of pushing us this direction. This is the right way to go. This is where the interest is, the business appetite is. I'm sort of lost on what to do now, because everything that was going to be after Orlando was going to be influenced and inspired, and even just the simple content generated from Orlando. There's a bit of a, well, what now?
yeah. I told you, this morning when you were asking me, okay, so what do you want to do today? How are we going to, and I told you, I said, I was totally checked out for Sunday. Like today, I'm like, okay, so now I do have to make my grocery list and I got to plan meals for the week. And I texted Ashley and said, I'll be back at work tomorrow. So, it is just, I know you had some nervousness going into it because this will be the first time that we've done, like you said, you've done CX Passport in a situation that you have a guest there in front of you.
And I don't
everything
have
has
total
always been
control
over Zoom.
over
Yes.
everything. Yep.
I was jumping into a new role of being the producer behind the scenes and getting B-roll and all, things. And I was like, okay, but if I turn away from the monitor and something's messed up while I'm trying to get B-roll, how am I? So So yeah, there was nervousness, but it was also exciting.
Yeah.
And so for now to it just be like,
Yeah.
okay. I
I like
mean,
that. The idea of going from new, totally new, from B-roll to grocery lists. That's a
well, and then I was thinking last night because I was thinking about the unanswered prayers, and I said, okay, why are we supposed to be here this week? Why were we not supposed to be there? What's in my head? I'm already jumping to what is the reason that we weren't supposed to go on this for this event. So it will be interesting to see if anything comes about from that or not,
That's
or
interesting because the why is not something that is, and normally I'm a very straight to the why did this happen kind of thing. That has not hit me in the same way. And I think for me, and this is not me saying that, well, my way is right, but rather for me, it's because it's so much bigger than CX Passport Live. For us, it's big, but the a hurricane hitting Orlando, I just haven't even thought about that affecting a conference, affecting CX Passport Live, affecting Rick and Clancy in Frisco, Texas this week.
I think I probably was thinking that way just because of the discussion we had Tuesday
Yeah.
night because everyone talked about when things go unanswered or the answer is no, or usually later down the line you can see why that happened, and sometimes it's not for anything. It just, this could be just God protecting us from being in a hurricane, and our friends that live in Orlando, I did tell them please stay safe,
Right.
and so yeah, I don't know, it's just
I have a question for you
okay.
because you talked about, well, now, I texted Ashley, I've got the grocery list.
Well,
I'm
I don't
st-
have the list yet, but yes.
we talked a little bit about this last night. Why pivot so quickly back to the routine?
Well, because one, I think I have the mindset, okay, that's not happening. So there's no reason for me to take off 4 days. And especially because because we did talk, we said, oh, okay, well, let's maybe just go somewhere else. But and you said something. I said, I'm not going anywhere that direction. So no. And then when I looked at another place that's easy to get to that we could just do a day trip or down and back, I was like, oh my gosh, the flight's already, $400, $500.
Yeah.
Well, no. So I don't know. I think I just pivoted right back. I think because it was just, okay, that's done. And
Yeah.
unpack the clothes. You hadn't put all your stuff in the suitcase yet. I had to open my suitcase, start unpacking everything.
Yeah, because
So,
yes, the flights. I spent some time playing around this morning. I was at Google, yeah, Google Flights, and I just put in days and just said, okay, I want the flights to be under this price. Where in can we go? And I found actually a couple that might be a couple that I'm like, no, have no interest in going there. And I think I'm still, and forget flights for a second. I'm even thinking, well, what if we went to Big Bend? Or what if we took a trip that is a trip that we had never really had the time or the ability to do, but now we could? And I'm still leaving it sort of open ended. I don't know. And the reason I asked that question of you is I don't know if I'm just still kind of in that denial or if no, I'm really trying to, hey, we've just been granted a gift and of 4 days that were already blocked out. So what could we do with those 4 days that we have wanted to do but haven't been able to do because schedule or weather or prices or whatever got in the way?
yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I can be spontaneous at times, but I think I already mentally have moved on and have just, and that's probably just a coping mechanism. I'm just, okay, done. Let's just get back to regular
Yeah.
routine.
I'm not there yet, but we're also talking about less than 24 hours. So I
Well,
may try to
you can
find,
go somewhere if you would like.
that's funny.
You always talk about wanting to go do whatever
Guadalupe
you're, yeah,
Mountains. Yeah.
so
So that's interesting though. That's a whole nother category though of, okay, yes, but this is a disappointment that we shared. This is a life that we're sharing. I'll be honest, it feels kind of selfish to look at you and say, "Hey, I think I may go camping for a couple days." That feels selfish to me. And I don't know that it should feel selfish,
no, because
but
I
it
don't
does.
want to go camping.
Well, I
So
know, but we would do I'm not
I
inviting you to go
know, but
camping.
and that's where I'm not that kind of wife partner
Oh, you've never been that way.
person
Uh-uh.
that I don't. If you said, "Hey, I'm going to go camping," I wouldn't be like, "Well, we should have done something together instead," because I've already, like I said, kind of mentally moved on and back to, just like I said, regular routine. So I'm giving you permission if you would like to go
Well,
camping.
thank you
But
for the permission, dear. But yeah, it is. It's just that feeling does hit there that not you, Clancy. Obviously, I'm talking about me, but that it feels somewhat selfish in doing something that is something that I know I enjoy, that I know you don't enjoy, and so I would be the only one involved doing it. When there's still a little part of me that's like, yeah, but what if I found a really good flight to Chicago? We both love Chicago and would do a trip there. So that's I think my desire would be, hey, what can we do together? So can we keep that open? And then pivoting into already routine starts to close that door down. And I realize it's not a solid close. If something popped, we could totally do it.
sure. Yeah.
I got another question for you.
Okay.
Well, I was thinking about it this morning, actually. Do disappointments hit differently in the empty nest? Do they hit harder, softer, differently?
I don't know necessarily in the empty nest, but I would say at the point of our life that we're in right now, which empty nest or not, it wouldn't. These things I don't think bother me as much as I was very disappointed for you. And me too, because I was looking forward to getting away for a few days, even though I was going to be doing things, which was fine. But because this is not oh my gosh, we really needed this to happen for our family, for life, for it doesn't, I don't have that just crying on the side of my bed like I have had
Yeah.
before.
All right.
Thanks.
See, I'm good at asking questions. You know the word as you were saying that? Because I didn't know the answer to this question when I asked it. The disappointment is not coupled with fear.
Yeah.
And I think some of that, there's two things that come to mind. One I'd actually already kind of thought of, but seeing you react the way that
Oh
you
my
react.
gosh, where's the tissue box? I'd move that out of here because
Sorry,
we weren't talking about.
that was a line from episode 1 through 5. You no tissue box anymore.
No. I guess
So why are
every
you?
time I'm gonna have to have tears.
Okay, but what do you think are behind the tears? Because you just said.
Well, I think I said it because I felt that fear,
Yeah.
and I don't have that now.
Yeah. So it's a memory of those past fears.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I'm glad that we're doing this because I hadn't crystallized it because I'm really disappointed at my core, and I'm a little uncertain what's happening next. Already talked about that. One difference about being in the empty nest, though, is we can do this, we can process this, we can experience this without the additional layer of, okay, but we've got to either explain to the kids or keep a good face in front of the kids or whatever. The kids are not a factor in this, that this can just be you and me processing this disappointment. Even something as simple as last night where we said, you know what? And it took us a while to get there, but that's the other part. We could choose when to get to that point of, all right, let's go to Torchy's, have some queso and some tacos and some drinks, right? And
some Brahms ice cream.
And some, I was.
I don't know if I'll be going back to Brahms anytime soon, but okay.
All right, well then Tegan and I can keep that. All right, the ice cream is good.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it too. Is that in addition to what you said of the fear is also not compounded by having to process this in front of or with the kids.
And again, like I said, I don't know that it matters empty nest or not, because if the kid, I mean, we let the kids know as soon as it happened, and it was just like, oh, bummer, but it wasn't like the other things that we have gone through when they were younger. And we actually talked about this week that, yes, I don't think they realized some of the struggles that were going on because we did a good job of sheltering them from that.
And that's a whole other category of parenting, that we tried to have our disagreements and our conflicts in front of them, but trying not to expose them to any economic fears was an important part for us. And maybe that wasn't the right choice. We'll never know, but that was our choice back then.
Yeah. So I don't, like I said, I don't know that it necessarily equates with empty nest. I get what you're saying, but if the kids were here yesterday, we would have been like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. This just got canceled, and it wouldn't have been.
It may be the age of the kids. Like,
yeah.
Whether they lived here or not, it's the fact that they're old enough to do that. So maybe I'm calling it empty nest when it's really having adult kids, which the two are very often synonyms for each other. Not always, but often adult kids means empty nest.
Yeah. So.
How are our adult kids?
They're good. They're living their best lives. So Tegan texted, that was the text from Tegan this week, was, which I didn't even know this was even a thing, and it's already been resolved. But she texted and said, "What's all this stuff I'm hearing about the ports closing and toilet apocalypse?"
And there strikes the ports, but I didn't realize people are going to now freak out about toilet paper again.
And I, being myself, sent the gift from South Park of everybody going to get the toilet paper, which
people
I think most of the toilet paper is made in the U.S.
I think it's a very domestic product.
And unless you're expecting something from Shein or anything Temu. That you order on Temu, probably,
which you shouldn't be ordering from, but anyway.
Cars, they did say cars were going to be
coffee, but people lose their bleep over really toilet paper.
Well, and I asked her,
I'd freak out more about coffee.
I said, "How many rolls of toilet paper do you have?" She had 10. I said, "You're good."
Yeah,
and she said, "But I do need eggs, so I need to go to the store anyway."
I mean, think about the Ticket does this all the time. They talk about. What would our grandparents think about something that we complain about? This Wi-Fi is really slow. And the grandparents like, a dust storm just stole all of our crops and we're going to die this fall. Really? The ships don't dock and we go grab a bunch of toilet paper?
Well, and I love Tegan because she said, she didn't know about it, but one of her roommates' parents texted and said, "I think y'all need to go stock up on stuff." And so then she said, "Well, we don't live by a port." I was like, oh, bless your heart. They just think things magically appear at the front door via the Amazon truck. So,
we have Amazon. We don't have ports.
If you're not near water, you're safe.
Oh, goodness. Well, good. From disappointments to laughs.
Yes.
That
And if anyone's listening and, works for a corporation that would like to do an event and have CX Passport live
Head over
as
to cxpassportlive.com for your full information, including pricing and options. We'd be glad to be at your next event.
there you go. Sponsor this episode was sponsored
Sponsored
by
by-
CX Passport Live.
Oh, Lordy.
Oh, there you go.
We do
Always.
find our ways into laughter, which is what I definitely enjoy about you and the loud quiet, living the empty nest.